I'd like to offer an acknowledgement of country and pronouns. So I'd like to acknowledge the Bedigal and Gadigal people whose land UNSW resides on, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and pay my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here with us. Secondly, I just wanted to let you know that my preferred gender pronouns are she, her, and please share your own if you're comfortable doing so through changing your name in the Zoom chat. So just as a bit of housekeeping, please make sure once again that you have all filled in the ARC attendance form using your name, ZID, and email. The link is in the Zoom chat sent by Raymond. Otherwise, you can just scan the form using the QR code that we have on the screen here. So I'll just pass on to one of our events subcommittee representatives, Kathy, to begin our event and give a bit of an introduction to women in technology.
Yep. First, a little bit about our society. UNSW Women in Technology is a society of both women and men that advocates for emerging women within the tech industry. After being founded in 2016 and now having evolved into a growing platform of over 2,700 students, we encompass a broad range of various disciplines and university stages. Our ultimate aim is to facilitate a smoother transition from university to professional life and cultivate empowered future leaders within the STEM sector. Today, we are lucky enough to be working in collaboration with VMware. VMware is an enterprise software company with over 30,000 employees worldwide. Ever since its inception, VMware has constantly been revitalizing, retransforming, and re-energizing the IT industry. We would like to extend a huge thank you to VMware for dedicating their time to engage at this event. I would like to introduce our speakers, Shannon, Mitchell, and Sharmyn, who are graduates from VMware, who will be talking about the current exciting things changing the tech industry. Without further ado, I will now hand over to VMware to start us off.
Kalani, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start off. So, hey everyone, really nice to be part of this event. It's actually the first time that VMware has engaged, organized an event with women in IT at UNSW. So I think it's really exciting that we can share a piece of our learnings and our experiences with you all, and hopefully you can take something away from today. So I hope you're as excited as I see this presentation, because I haven't actually seen it in full either. So just as an introduction to me, my name's Kalani. I am the university recruiter for VMware, which means I handle all roles related to universities, which means interns and mostly graduates. And so we actually have 3 graduates here who are actually presenting, or who are graduate alumni. And they will be presenting a little bit more about VMware, their experiences, and hopefully you can ask them some questions as well around what it's like to be a graduate of VMware. I think what we really love about graduates is that it's always really exciting to see that they've got so much passion and energy. So hopefully you get a sense of that today. Now, I will not say too much now. I'll have a moment to speak more about our roles and our graduate positions, but I'll hand it off now to Shannon and Sharmyn and Mitch to introduce themselves.
Hi, if people can see me, my name is Shannon. So I graduated from university in 2016 with an engineering degree, and joined VMware in 2017 and worked there since. I've done various different roles, but mainly worked in the solution engineering department, where we basically we would consult with customers and use our own technical expertise in VMware technologies to construct solutions to solve whatever problem they have, IT problems. Sharmyn, you want to go next?
Hey everyone, so my name is Sharmyn. I actually graduated from University of Sydney doing computer science and my bachelor's there in the year 2019. I did quite a few part-time jobs while I was there, worked as an engineer, then also dabbled a little bit into artificial intelligence, taught coding as well, did quite a few initiatives like this at university as well. So I was fully appreciative and really wanted to get involved with the WIT society, at UNSW, and I'm really passionate about what VMware does and passionate about my role as a solution engineer as well. So whenever there's an opportunity to tell or assimilate both and explain that to, other students, I always take it on. So I'm keen and eager and excited to talk with you guys. Over to you, Mitch.
Thank you, Sharmyn. So hello everyone, it's Mitch. So I also graduated in 2019. I did audio engineering. So not really a computer specific background, but it's been a fun kind of progress in terms of having to shift my view and having to look into this field. So same concept, just on the solution engineering aspect. Went through the graduate program last year with Shaman. So now we are in our full-time kind of customer facing roles. And yeah, really enjoy the industry, enjoying the day-to-day life of it all. And yeah, if people have any questions, always feel free to reach out and always happy to share some advice on that front. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So agenda to start with, a few topics that we're going to cover today. So first, we're going to take you through an example to provide you a glimpse on how the industry we're in, basically enterprise IT, how it works and what it's for, why it's there. We'll also share a bit on what VMware does and how it kind of places itself in the industry. We'll take you through some of the potential opportunities available to you, career opportunities after you graduate, particularly inside VMware, but also in the broader industry. At the end, we'll share some stories about the cultural aspect of VMware, followed by a Q&A. So first, I want to invite everyone to look at an example. So basically picture a mobile app on your phone. Spotify, banking app, take your pick. So I assume like it's women in IT, so most of us would have a technology or engineering background. And some of you probably have had experience developing mobile apps. And this part is not what we're going to talk about today. Most complex app I think about on your phone, it doesn't actually store all the information on your phone. It needs to retrieve stuff from the server side. And when I was doing this, I think about my time at uni, and there was one exercise where we simulated client server and on a laptop. It's very similar. It's kind of same concept where you exchange information between the client and the server, but instead of having them placed on one machine in real life, things are just more complicated to do it right. And a few questions we need to ask on the server side. We need to know where it's sending to, and what is doing all the stuff. What is the server and where is it? And there's also usually an authentication process, because server just won't respond to any request that you send it to it. How is the authentication done? What's doing it? And oh, sorry, went ahead too much. And is it secure? Like, you don't want your information to be leaked. And on top of that, you need to time all these questions by many number, like 1 million, because there's so many users asking these questions and so many requests that's being sent from different phones. Just not, not pretty much the same as not the same as doing it on as in a simulation. And to respond to these questions, that's where the company or enterprise kind of side of things starts. If we look a little deeper, and to respond to all these server requests, I've got a little illustration here to explain the process. It's still in a simplification, but I think it represents a little better on what's going on behind the scene. So basically, when you picture your mobile app sending a request, and in this case, let's assume it's asking for like authorization. So basically say a logon, that's an authorization it's asking for. What you need to do is you need to get an authentication first before the server can grant you any access rights. The first thing that request is going to hit is probably a load balancer. Actually, it's probably a DNS before the load balancer, but I just simplified it here. So this is the load balancer symbol in here. So it's also probably the address that your app is going to remember on your phone, so that the app would know to go to the load balancer, or the DNS would know this is the IP address it needs to go once it receives the request. The reason we need a load balancer is because of that times 1 million or many users. One server probably can't handle all that request at once, and so that we need multiple ones. We also want to be able to add or take away servers at demand, as demand grows or shrinks. And it's just a lot easier to have a load balancer fronting that server farm. So that we don't need to, customize and change every user app or every DNS servers every time we make changes to our server farm. And I'm sorry, by the way, load balancer is a little machine that kind of load balances a request and send the request to different directions. Should explain that. And the first server behind that load balancer, we call it a web server because it's web facing. In many cases, it handles web requests like REST APIs. It doesn't mean that it will host website. Just don't get confused there. It's just a web server that we call it. It would pretty much handles all the intakes of the request and sometimes do some simple sorting. And say it's an authentication request. That web server would know that, look, it's authentication. I'm going to send it to an authentication app server, which is here, which is also fronted by a set of load balancers probably. That authentication app server will do the authentication, but before that, it needs to retrieve your user data from a database server in here, because it needs to compare whether you have the right credentials, you have the right password to be able to authenticate you and give you the access rights. So all the user information won't be stored here, be stored in a dedicated database server just to store information. So this basically just described a very simple 3-tier application. And throughout this presentation onwards, we'll kind of generally use the term application to refer to these applications on the right, not the mobile phone application, just to be clear on that. And all of these things, they need to be protected by enterprise-grade firewalls and appropriate encryptions, probably in the database to ensure the safety of your data. Like when you hear stories about data breaches and you lost your personal information, it's probably because something went wrong in these kind of things. And when set up correctly, each of these will be secure, and each of these servers, they need to be able to scale up and down, like shrink or grow independently of each other, to handle different amount of demands. And where all of these things run, it's definitely not on a laptop or a personal computer. They run on physical servers from things called data centers. And I was trying to give you an idea. I've got a picture here. So each of these slots, they will host one server. And one server to, the size of probably half of this table, and weighing maybe 20 kilograms, 25 kilograms. And for just as an example, they would have say 48 cores, CPU cores, and say 1 terabyte of RAM. And each of these slots would be one of them. And there'll be rows and rows of these in a data center, and all properly connected by network connectivities done in their way. Where these data center are, they could be in these companies. So if you got a banking app, that could be in the data center of ANZ or St. George or Westpac. These banking buildings, they would have a data center like that, or they could be shared. It will be in dedicated facilities. Some of you might be familiar with the concept of cloud. Cloud doesn't mean that servers running clouds. They actually do just running all these data centers. They just means that the servers, they're large shared data centers. And this picture I actually got from Google. So that's a picture of Google Cloud Platform. So that's one cloud platform, but all the things that actually they do run on physical servers, and not on cloud, cloud. And so it's not before I joined VMware or joined this industry, I never realized these things existed, but they do, and they form the foundation of the IT convenience that we get day to day. This is a really big industry, and many people work to both maintain the environment, these servers, and also to construct and maintain the software environment, like the network, architecture, firewalls. We talked about, how you place the load balancer, et cetera, et cetera. And so yeah, that's pretty much a screenshot of what where these things come from and how it ties to our day-to-day life. And I also want you to think about, what needs to be considered to run an enterprise-grade application. And some examples first is availability. Just imagine like you as a customer, like when you go on a mobile phone app, sometimes you get like a timeout error. How like frustrated, how annoyed are you? It's the same thing. We need to ensure like high availability so that the customer is satisfied, isn't annoyed, and brand image is protected. So it's pretty much key to a lot of enterprises, and even more so for industries like health, defense, etc. There's also efficiency. So we want quick response, and we want more outcome. Think about like big data. We want more outcome in a short period of time. It does depend on how the application is written by the software engineers, but it also highly depends on how it's run. Even if it's designed right, if it's not run right, it's not going to give us the outcome. We need connectivity, especially in Australia, where there's like much rural areas. Engineers need to think about how we get or how we reach to these areas equally securely and efficiently. It's compatibility. Before we roll out anything, we need to consider how compatible it is to its platform and also to its peer applications. Like enterprise world application could be really, really big. It could consist of like multiple servers, virtual servers, and it would have like peer applications. It would have flows into many, many other applications. You need to consider like, are they going to work together before any rollout of any new versions? There's also security. You hear data breaches, you hear ransom, it's all tied to that. We want to like as secure as possible, and it's a fight between the security team and the hackers, pretty much. There's also compliance. We want to be compliant to any governing body policies, or the consequences will be either a big fine or even out of business. Operational efficiency. Average size company could have like hundreds of applications we just talked about. And we need to run it succinctly, or the overhead is just going to grow like exponentially. It's just going to be a unmanageable. Life cycle. Application needs to be updated and maintained constantly. And last but not least at all, is the cost. We want to run them efficiently and not overly expensive. Basically, what I want to highlight is a lot of stuff in it just to run application well. And that there usually would be an IT team just dedicated in a company just to maintain these things, separated from the software development team. And in many companies, there will be multiple teams looking after all these from different aspects and with different specializations, just because of the complexity of the system. Next I pass over to Sharmyn to share like how running these applications optimally can contribute to the success of the business. Sharmyn?
Thank you so much, Shannon. So I was scrolling on news today, and there was this one article that talked about the importance of applications, and it ran on business success. And one line just really stuck out to me, and I thought I would mention it to you guys. Right? Everything is an application, and applications are the heart of modern business success. And Shannon just went through basically the core of an application and how each part basically plays like an important role in that whole line of process. And this is essentially where our vision, VMware's vision, also plays into it as well. We as a business need these processes, or have these processes in place, because they're essentially, constantly allowing our customers to, be part of that whole process of challenges. I want you to think about it like this. You are part of a team filled with runners, and everyone has the same running shoes, but you just came in with the most incredible new runners that anyone has ever seen. All of a sudden, you've set yourself apart from the rest. You all of a sudden have these endurable, ASICs just made these special runners for you. Exactly like this, other business out there in the world look at, how they can integrate certain processes into their line of chain to create that application that sets them apart from the rest. And what Shannon just read through, compliance, cost, efficiency, agility, all of these play a massive part in how the application is built and how it's going to be perceived by the companies as well. So what happens, when businesses create these applications and modernize or digitally transform themselves? One, they set themselves apart from other businesses. Exactly what I said, it's new running
Secondly, how they provide experience to their customers. More customers using the applications, liking the applications, enjoying how easy it is to use those applications, really provides them with better, data-driven processes as well. There's customers from word of mouth tell other customers as well, and through that ability, they drive, new incentives. Third, what they offer that's unique in this rapidly changing environment as well. So through those applications, you all of a sudden have, better customer experience, and you improve innovation as a process of that as well. You're able to protect company assets. So once you integrate security, you put better security policies and controls into your application through, certain solutions in market. You all of a sudden make that application much more resilient and durable, and you're able to give that guarantee to your customers saying, look, we're giving you this application, and we're not just giving you this application for the sake of giving you this application. We're making sure that the backend is as secure as possible and your data is not going to be leaked. I mean, every single day I open up my phone and there's a million, data leaks out there in the market. You don't want to be one of those applications. You don't want to be one of those applications that constantly comes up into your customer's, phone saying, look, has leaked your data, so you might as well refresh your password. You want to be one of those applications that constantly proves its success through its security. Then you promote your brand image. No business, and I would challenge you guys, if you say there is, wants to be in the headlines with negative, negative connotations. No business wants to be there. So if they're doing the right things, they're producing the right applications, they're giving you incentives, those applications are giving, you the right amount of services through those, then that promotes brand image. And that's one of the key drivers for any business out there as well. And once they create that brand image in there, in the audience, what happens is that it differentiates them from their competitors once again. And all through all of this, doing all of this, you have that triangle of, speed, agility, and performance that's basically satisfied as well. So when you look at, how is this impacting business, you creating a good application that you're feeding through your business, how does it impact? It gives them better incentives, it gives them better, customer brand image as well, and it differentiates them from the rest. Now I'm going to pass on to Mitch, who's going to explain a little bit about how VMware adds into this picture as well.
All right, hello. So Shannon, can I go to the next slide, please? All right, so I'll pretty much just be giving you a bit of a guide to understanding the VMware vision, which is what Sharmyn kind of briefly mentioned upon, and really how this all kind of comes together, what we were talking about in the previous slides. So I think kind of we can start off with understanding that we are a digital foundations company, but we've adapted quite significantly with a lot of recent acquisitions and offerings. And the key ideation is quite based around how we build, secure, run, connect, and then manage. And then this is all whilst cutting the 3 Cs, commonly referred to as cost, complexity, and carbon. So on top of this concept is how we work with any app on any cloud on any device. So doing a little bit of history here. So 20 years ago, VMware pioneered a thing called x86 virtualization, which was the concept of taking software and applications and databases away from the physical hardware that they were attached to, freeing them from their confines of silicon and metal. So why were people doing this? Well, quite frankly, just saving a lot of money. There was improvements of services to end users, but primarily it was the cost saving. The VMware server virtualization platform is pretty much now part of more than 3/4 of the world's market share. We then moved into virtualizing not just the compute layer, but then also the storage and the network layer as well. And this was all kind of part of that evolution of freeing customers from that physical layer, increasing agility, saving money, and reducing that carbon back on those 3 Cs. So interesting fact, every server that is virtualized actually saves 7,000 kilowatts of electricity and around 4 tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year. So with more than 1 million workloads running on VMware vSphere, the aggregate power savings is about 8 billion kilowatts, which is more than the heating, ventilation, and cooling electricity consumed in New England in a year. So let's break this down into some pillars. So we build the digital foundation, and on this, it's kind of gaining grand access to technologies with the ability to run those server virtualization concepts such as virtual machines and then containers. And then this is also particularly quite unique in a sense, we can migrate some of those really old school applications that were built a long time ago to those more modern applications that you kind of use and operate with today. So in a quick summary, the industry is very clear on containers and Kubernetes as an orchestration system for containers and microservices. And then with the Tanzu family, it has made us write the leading Kubernetes build. So an example of how we helped build was actually in the Service New South Wales digital driver's license app. And that's something we're all familiar with, since it's actually what we're using now to check into venues in New South Wales. So then there's also the secure component. And that's pretty much building security into the very fabric, no longer really bolting things on like you traditionally understand. We're moving away from the threat-centric to understanding more of a context-centric in the cybersecurity space. And it's all kind of weaved in each of the layers here. There's also the running component. And again, this is on the server virtualization platform, and that's vSphere. So again, no one can run those applications with the Kubernetes framework, what we kind of offer. And these could all be all sorts of apps, whether they be on-prem or in the cloud as well. We've also got the connect piece, and this is essentially connecting people to apps through technology like software-defined wide area networking, SD-WAN, and then things like secure access service edge. Then there's that kind of management piece. And this is where we kind of start managing infrastructure, breadth of infrastructure and devices. And then a significant part is how we help reduce the cost of environments, like running and migrating and providing analytics and forecasting data. So when we go back to the overarching aspect, which is the any app on any cloud on any device. So we'll kind of start with the any device. So this is the kind of focus of you should be able to go in and not really constrain a user to a particular device. We're giving access to and targeting any device. So we want to take away the friction. So we've got solutions here that pretty much provide flexibility, policies to really have like a one-click wonder. So a lot of end users, particularly in organizations, can get apps, data, all that kind of stuff provisioned to their laptops or their iPhones or Androids. There's also the any app, and that's the any applications. So this is where businesses look at the apps that they're currently using, and then the apps of what they would be using in the future. And then apps are that bread and the butter. So we're talking about database apps in particular, et cetera, and they're all able to run them successfully. And then the ability to run them on premise, but also the capability to run them on the cloud. So AWS, IBM, Google, that kind of concept. And then finally is that any cloud. So understanding that cloud is a feature, but really what does it mean? And it's the ability to have applications run anywhere. And what we mean by that is, quite frankly, anywhere. You should have the ability to run what you want on any cloud. All right. So we have many partners. And again, that's Amazon Web Services, AWS, Microsoft Azure, IBM Cloud, Google Cloud, just to name them a few. So to really wrap this all up, some of the many customers we've actually worked with in this area include Australia Post. So we've addressed security and end user computing for their workforce. We've also worked with the Australian Securities Exchange, so ASX, and actually assisted them with the new blockchain vision as well. So as you can see, there are quite a few pieces going on, but this is why we are such a unique company with many specialized offerings, really helping organizations in many ways. All right, so I'm going to pass the microphone back to Sharmyn now.
Thank you, Mitch. That was a great introduction to VMware's vision. So now what I'm going to do is, so Mitch has already explained to you the vision, right? He's explained to you how essentially a lot of the solutions, a lot of the tools we offer to the wider community is because of, certain trends in the market. And VMware literally superheads a lot of the trends that exist currently today. And they allow our customers to, achieve that true digital transformation. But why these certain trends? Why these certain tools, right? So if I look, if I look now, in terms of the public cloud space, this is because there's 90% of the companies around the world are on the cloud today. And VMware has really recognized that through our public cloud offering. What is public cloud? Public cloud allows you to have your on-premises environment so a business would have their on-premise environment inside of where they're hosting or at a data center, but then allow them to consume services from, AWS, Microsoft through Azure as well, through Google as well. All of these massive cloud providers have their own cloud running as well. So by consuming their on-premise environment as well, but then able to migrate across to the public cloud, it's what's trending right now into the technology space, and that's what VMware has recognized. And we want to offer our customers the ability to do that as well. Then we have 70% of companies will be adopting containerized applications by the year 2022. So if you're thinking about learning Kubernetes, no better time than learning it today, because a lot of companies are superheading or really want to dive into that Kubernetes space. And one company that's offering them that ability is VMware themselves. We have a tool that's specific to Kubernetes and allowing you to containerize your applications, because that's what people really want, right? And then what we have is around, in the first half of 2020, there were about 36 billion data breaches exposed. Can you imagine? That's when everyone was going remote. So you don't want to be one of those companies that has a data breach. So that's where our cybersecurity, our intrinsic security piece comes into it. We want to make sure that our customers are as safe as possible. And security is one of those topics that, a lot of my friends are diving into as well, and their companies. And a lot of schools are really focusing majorly on as well, because until now, we didn't really take security as seriously as we should, right? Only 5% of companies around the world actually have the right processes, procedures in place that allow them to be as secure as possible against any data leaks, any breaches, essentially any types of Trojans, anything that you want that could scare you possibly in the security space, they've been breached against. So be careful, and that's one of the the security pieces, one of the top trendings that VMware is really diving into as well. And Mitch mentioned this as well. We want to not have it bolted on. We want to thread it into a lot of our tools and solutions out there as well. And then hyper-converged infrastructure. The reason we're doing, or why we're diving so deep into hyper-converged infrastructure, and don't worry, if it's a new topic for you, not many people know about it, so don't stress. It essentially allows you to take your hardware. So take your machines, take your servers, anything that you have, and basically allow you to abstract it in such a way that you produce it in software. So now network is no longer tied to just having its underlying, routers and switches. You've essentially abstracted it to the overlay and allowing you to have it in software. What does that do? It allows you to double or triple or as much as you want, occupy, the space that you have on the underlying hardware. So consume it in much greater amounts without having to make that hardware essentially redundant. And we're doing this for not only storage but also networking services as well. And this is one thing that's really charging in the environment, in the industry today as well, in the technology space, because what we don't want is to basically limit ourselves. The technology space is growing, the workforce is growing as well. It's starting to multiply in the amount of people that are going remote. So you don't want to be restricted in terms of your hardware. You want to be able to stretch out anywhere you want for your software in the software layer. And then remote workforce, you guys are a great representation of that. Universities are one of the most incredible representations that once the COVID hit, unfortunately, everyone had to work from home, right? So what did universities have to do to be able to accommodate all of these hundreds, thousands of students all of a sudden working from home? VMware is a great contender of that. UNSW is one of our great partners. We have great success with them to allow, the students to work remotely without having to stress on, are students going to be able to be reached? Are they going to have the right services? Would they have the right coding infrastructure in place as well to allow them to do their assignments on play, right? So these are little partnerships that we've done that have allowed us to have great success through understanding what trends are in the market as well. And I would recommend, as students as well, look at these trends, understand what your flavors are, what you enjoy within these spaces as well. Whether it's Kubernetes, whether it's doing a certification from AWS, whether it's a certification from Azure, whether it's understanding how storage works and how software storage works or network storage works as well. Software network works, sorry. Understanding how all these roles play is how VMware got there. So yeah, we're always up to trend with whatever's in market today. And to you, Kalani.
Thanks, Sharmyn. I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was an awesome presentation. I think you guys did amazing at really talking about VMware and the technology. And I think I learned a lot from that myself. So I hope you guys took something away from that. So now to more of the recruitment side of things and a little bit more away from technology. And before I flesh out what these roles are and what you're seeing on your screen now, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the context of what it's like to be a recruiter at VMware. And I think one of the things I love, and I feel like I'm really blessed with working at VMware with managers and employees, just seeing how passionate and excited people are about developing young talent. And, I'm constantly amazed by how VMware employees are excited about seeing university talent entering the organization. And even like an event like today, just seeing how much enthusiasm there is from team members to be part of this and bringing in as much young talent as we can. So I think that's one of the most important, probably one of the most important reasons is that, you guys bring so much energy into the company, and, you bring great ideas, you bring diversity of thought to the organization. I think that itself inspires all of us at VMware to do better. And I think that's why we really love, bringing in young talent and graduates into VMware. So I think as our leadership team would say, graduates are the future of VMware and the modern IT world. So, that's one of the real reasons why I love my job, and I think why VMware loves graduates as well. So in terms of the roles and what you're seeing on your screen, we really do hire a real range of different positions. And I think the interesting thing here to take away is that you don't have to have a technical degree to join VMware. And, if you want to be really technical, there's always that space, but there's, we do have roles like inside sales or sales positions where you don't need to be so technical. But I think the one common denominator amongst all our graduate positions is that you really need to have a passion for technology, whether you be someone who's hands-on and, works with technology really closely in implementation, or even if it's someone who's just talking about it, the common thread is there's technology in every part of your discussion. So, if you're not passionate about it, if you're not excited about it, VMware is probably not the place. But if you are, don't worry about not having a technical degree or an IT degree. There's always that room for growth. And I think that's really something that I love, again, as part of my role, is bringing in people who have such a diverse background. And, Mitch explained earlier that he comes from a music audio background, and, that's amazing. He's not from a software developer, or he's not coming from a computer science or IT background, but he's still one of our successful graduates or solution engineers at VMware. So, please do think about that when you do look at our positions. For this year, our graduate roles are coming to a close in terms of our advertising. We are getting to more of the meaty part of the recruitment process, and we don't have too many roles open. We have some, so if you are interested, do have a look, but most of our roles we have closed. Now, I won't go into too many of the roles and their descriptions, but like I said, we have a range, and that range goes from inside sales, not so technical. Often people who enter these roles have a business background, marketing background. They're people who've got, interest in business development, in building customer relationships. And then I guess the next tier is probably the roles, the grads that you met today. So Sharmyn, Shannon, and Mitch, and they're solution engineers. So what that means is you need to be able to have that technical understanding, as you can see. They need to be able to understand it in theory, but they're not hands-on with the technology. And they still are part of that sales process. So they still need to be able to present, and they still need to be able to sell in a certain way, even though they're not really the one responsible for the sale, or they're not really the one implementing. They still need to have that technical mindset. So that's kind of the next tier. And then a lot of our roles come into professional services, and that's a lot of the roles you're seeing on your screen now fall under that category. So professional services is an umbrella where you have consultants, you have technical account managers, you have project coordinators, you have client solution associates, where they all work together for the post-sales, for the deliveries piece of VMware technology. So they're coming in from a different angle, but a lot of them still really focus on that customer relationship. And if you having that soft skills, having being able to articulate yourself well, I think it's something that will not go to waste in any of our roles. All of our roles kind of do require that to certain levels and degrees. So professional services, I would say, is probably the biggest umbrella that we have in our graduate roles, but we do hire across a real range. R&D is probably one of our smallest or our less hired roles. A lot of our R&D roles are hired in India actually, but we do have a handful that we have in Australia. Last year we hired one. Unfortunately, we're not hiring any this year, but next year we could be hiring one or two or none again. So if you are interested in R&D, development and all of that, we probably don't have that many, but you can still watch the space and see what we have available. I will say a commonly asked question is around our internships and whether we have internships. Now we do, we actually are hiring one next year, but we are doing that with Macquarie Uni, not with UNSW, unfortunately. We don't have that many. Again, they're often the one or two. It's something that we're still growing. We have a lot in the US and we have a lot in other areas of the world, but in Australia, our main focus is graduates. So if you are looking to be part of VMware as a graduate, we do have quite a few roles that we hire every year, and normally we do release our roles around March, April. You'll definitely see them up on our website or on LinkedIn. So keep an eye out on that space. And yeah, that's really all from my part for this slide. Next, over to you, Sharmyn.
Guys, we're nearly at the end, I promise. So this is just essentially explaining one of our core values. So VMware's values can be summarized, from an incredible abbreviation called EPIC 2. And the reason why it's called EPIC 2 is because, we have execution, you have passion, you have integrity, you have customers, and then community is one of our incredible pillars that VMware really stresses on. It's great that you do your job. It's great, that you're adding value through your services, but it's also important to recognize that we're part of a whole community, right? It's not just us, it's this world, it's the people that live on the infrastructure, the greenery, everything. And it's essentially representing that we stand for as individuals and as a community as well. So VMware really strives and really digs deep into, those values and really encourages us and motivates us essentially to, go out into the community and see how you can add value. So whether that be through an incentive that you're really passionate about, so you might be really passionate about adopting dogs, or setting up these facilities that allows you to adopt dogs, or it could be an incentive that someone else is passionate about and really encouraging and helping them out as well. So there's a lot of our service learning projects where people in the company essentially come up and go, look, I'm passionate about tree planting. And through that, they basically advertise it out and run those projects that you can be part of and help them, to plant those trees. Then there's Waratah National Park, and Mitch, and I'm not 100% sure about Shannon, but we've been part of, that, and I can have Mitch and Shannon talk a little about it as well, or other service learning projects too. Did you guys want to add in a little bit here?
You go, Shannon.
Yeah, I just want to say there's so many, and so many that you could start, so many you can join. It's a true atmosphere. And Waratah Park, I've been. You can get a touch to nature. You get this got Australian native animals. I can't remember the name.
Skippy. I think that's the home of where Skippy was filmed. And it's just the cutest thing in the world. Oh my God, it's so much fun.
Wombats, wallabies, possums, all this stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a really fun event. And to know that you'll be part of something bigger than yourself is really great. Then you can clean homes for people who are not able to clean their own homes, in terms of the homeless space. Yeah. And then there's also Hour of Code, where you can help, females and males, who are at university or high school or, primary education as well. Essentially, you can set up programs where you can, through your own fun way, create those little coding programs and then teach them as well. These are just to name a few. This goes worldwide, and VMware has 40 hours of service learning built into our system where we can kind of take it anytime we want, and just go, look, I'm going to do service learning for the day. So yeah, and the managers are always very willing to give you that time off to kind of do service learning as well. So it's a great incentive. And apart from that as well, donations. Throughout the year, VMware gives us a lot of money to donate as well. And then if we want to donate on our own accord, they match it. So every donation that we make, they match it, and they actually donate from our side as well. So these little ways are really great to kind of bring a smile to other people's face. I've seen how much VMware's done for the community as well. And it makes you it makes you feel very good to be affiliated with a company that really does well. They treat us incredibly, but then they also take it a little bit step further and treat the society incredible as a whole too. So a small glimpse into, a massive pool of what VMware does, but yeah, a really great way of, doing service learning, giving back to the company as a whole.
I just want to add to that. When I was, I don't know, like if any of you's been looking for jobs, but when I was looking for jobs, there's so many companies that they have their values listed on the website. VMware is one that we have it listed on the website, but we actually execute it, and it's in our lives 100%.
Yeah, I think, and that brings us to our Q&A. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead, happy to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's so great as well to hear that VMware is so focused on really enabling like a great society and a great culture within the company and giving back to the broader community. It's definitely something that is so important when you do consider which jobs and which companies you are applying for. And it's definitely something that here at WIT, we equally always would love to be able to champion to that extent as well. So it's really amazing to hear, in addition to the very impressive and intriguing work that's being conducted. So I'll pass on to Raymond to kick off our Q&A. So if anybody in the call does have any questions, feel free to type them into the Zoom chat. And then we can begin. I'll pass it on to you, Raymond.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all those amazing insights about VMware and all the incredible and revolutionary works you guys are up to. We will now be having a Q&A session with our representatives. Feel free to turn on your mic if you feel comfortable and type your questions in the chat below, and we'll read them aloud for everyone.
Just to start off, you guys can ask us any question. No question's a dumb question. Even if you wanted to just ask Sharmyn. Oh, we have a question. Cool.
Yep, so Emily's just asked, to our graduates, what is the most amazing project you guys have worked on?
Sharmyn, you want to share your project that?
You can go first, Jan.
No, you go.
In terms of projects, some of the still are executing. Something that you learn while you're becoming a solution engineer is that it's not just a brief window of 2 days that the project runs for. It runs for quite a bit of time. But apart from that, I get to work with quite a few incredible companies, such as I got to work with Macquarie Bank on a project that they're currently facilitating. And then there's also Project Phoenix that we're part of as well, that allows us to do presentations and reach out to companies as well. So that's an incredible project that I've been part of as well. Apart from that, it's been a lot of little projects that I've been part of that I really enjoyed. Mitch, we've been part of projects together. We have our service learning projects that we do as well. But yeah, anything in specific that you'd want to mention?
Yeah, I would probably break things down. So definitely in the service learning, definitely Waratah Park. So I've gone to that a couple of times, and being involved on that aspect's been really good. Definitely enjoyed that, and the volunteers that also work there have always been very thankful for our time. And so we've done things such as reconstructing some of the animal sheds, filling in different holes that the wombats have dug, for example. So there's a lot of different cool little tasks that we get given. In terms of technical projects, there's a lot that we work on, and as Shaman kind of mentioned, some of them can just be pretty quick, and then some of them can take quite a bit of time. But it's a bit of a journey, and it's an education journey in most of the time for both myself and the customer, and it's just something we all walk on. So just recently, I kind of was helping out with a customer has, a global customer that has sites across Sydney, Melbourne, Queensland, and we kind of had to look in terms of essentially consolidating, so decreasing their footprint, but also kind of keeping it all up and running, essentially just making it a lot more efficient. So we went through a really long process of kind of going through that, running logs against their environments, getting all the metrics, pulling this all together, and essentially designing something from a hardware perspective, so CPUs, RAM, all those configurations, and then a software perspective as well. So the different projects, the products that would kind of all tie together and make all these 3 different locations all communicate with each other. And in case the Melbourne site went down, all the information and all the processes would be loaded back up in the Sydney site. So that's probably a big one that I've been a part of, and had a good team behind me as well. It was quite a big task, particularly for graduate, and so I had a good team behind me to help out with that process as well, which is something I'm very thankful for too.
Yeah, I think some of the most fun projects that I've been part of are all related to public cloud, especially in AWS. So I think that's where a lot of my interest lies as well. Shan, what about you?
Yeah, so we do work in the solution engineering department, which is a customer facing space. So doing project isn't our day-to-day job, but in VMware, what's really good is that you can voluntarily join projects focused either on coding or non-coding of your interest. So I had the privilege to work with a principal network engineer on a seemingly tiny thing to refine the performance and the routing on a load balancer using Lua. And I myself is not in it, but I had a colleague who works on a real model mouse rover, where they would use our product to control the mouse rover and feedback on the information that the rover collects. So these are the we've also got a lot of open source and voluntary, I suppose, the software programming projects that you can work on within VMware that you could actually publish it and a customer would actually start using it. You commercialize pretty much eventually your project and your work. There's a lot of options if you're interested in any of these things. Structure of the graduate program, Kalani, you want to answer that? Or
yeah, I'll grab that. And you guys can add on if you like as well. So our graduate program actually runs for 1 year, or just under 1 year. So we normally have our grads start in February, and it ends the next year around end of January. And how it starts is we start off with all the graduates coming together. Pre-COVID, everyone came to Sydney and we had everyone in one room. Unfortunately, Sharmyn and Mitch were not privy to that. Shannon, you might have been. And everyone comes together for 6 weeks where they do various different training activities. Whether you be in sales or you're a technical person, everyone's doing the same thing, and you get to learn a little bit more about the business together. And I think what's really great about this, and Mitch and Sharmyn, you could add on if you feel is true, everyone gets really close. You really develop a nice close-knit cohort. I remember, Sharmyn, you saying you guys were going on holidays last year, and I was very jealous because my team doesn't do that. But yeah, so you get really close, and then you do the on the job training. So then you all scatter off into your own teams. Each manager might have a different schedule. So for example, our sales grads often go through a rotation program. Our PSOs often follow like a project or a case study where they need to do something where it's a bit more practical. So there's different kinds of activities that each manager will organize, but really that gives you a really good idea of what you're meant to do in your role. And I think the great thing about being grad is that you're really paid for 1 year to learn. There's nothing much more that's expected of you. All you need to do is learn, have some fun, and take in as much as you can. So I think that's one of the great things about the grad program. Sharmyn.
And one of the great things also that VMware provides you is a lot of mentors. I would love to add that in because I still talk to my mentor every day that I got, in my first year. They provide you with incredible skills that you can learn. They give you a time period, in terms of what you can expect from the role, from their own experience as well. So you don't feel like you're by yourself. I was able to have a really good friendship, as Kalani said, not only with my cohort, but with these mentors as well, and they stay with you for a lot of journey. So you learn a lot of those skills, you learn a lot of what you should know as well. And by monitoring their meetings, you sort of learn how their style is and then try to adapt that to yourself or try to understand, what could be potentially coming for you down the track as well.
Cool. I think the next question is about the recruitment process. I know we've only got a minute or two left, so I'll keep this really quick. The recruitment process is quite simple from your perspective. You just apply. I'm the only university recruiter, so I go through all the roles. Sometimes I go through hundreds of applications, and you will then be, if you are successful to the next round, you go through a phone call or an interview with me. And then the next round is usually an interview with the hiring manager. And then the last round is an assessment day where you go through 2 activities, a group activity and a panel presentation. And that's it. So we try and keep it quite simple, quite quick. All our interview processes are now virtual, so you don't even need to come into the office. And there are roles all across Australia. So Sydney being our hub of ANZ, Australia, New Zealand, is where most of our roles are hired, but we do hire in Melbourne and Canberra and Brisbane, for example. So, you don't have to be confined to Sydney to get a job. And we do offer a relocation package as well. So if you wanted to move to another state and you wanted to try something out, we actually support that financially as well. So, you can always look out for that space as well if that's something that interests you.
Yeah. I think,
Soft gender. Are we? Oh, sorry, 3 o'clock. Are we up?
yeah, I think that's about all the time we have questions
Cool.
for. Thank you everyone for the questions, and thank you VMware for sharing your insights about this question. And with that being said, I'm going to pass on to Kathy to end off this event.
Yep. Thank you everyone for attending our WIT x VMware Intro to VMware presentation, and a special thanks to our representatives from VMware for co-hosting this event with us. We hope that it has granted you all the chance to gain some very valuable insights and learn about both the technology industry and the people and journeys within this field. The WIT team strives to produce high quality events, so we greatly appreciate any feedback from today's event. Please fill out our feedback form linked in the Zoom chat. At the end of the form, you can find the details of our amazing reps to stay connected. You can also scan the QR code or access the link posted in the Zoom chat. Just before you guys go, make sure to register for WIT x Windsock Biotech Panel with speakers from Cochlear and more. This event will be on in week 2 of next term and provide insight in the biotech industry and where your science or technology degree can take you. Look out for more details on our Facebook page or any of our social media platforms. Thank you again for joining us tonight and have a good afternoon.